Hello, I'm Carolyn Ribeiro from mining.com.au. Today I'm joined by Great Boulder Resources Managing Director Andrew Patterson to fill us in on what's happening at the company's flagship Sidewell gold project near Meekatharra in Western Australia. Andrew, nice to see you.
Thanks for your time.
So talk us through the initial exploration target for Sidewell.
So this is something we've been working on for quite a while, and what we've been doing is retrospectively assaying previous drilling intersections for particularly for copper and silver. These are intersections that we've already previously assayed for gold. So it's allowed us to build up this target, which is actually quite well supported by about 90 drill holes. Primary zones about 400 metres long. There's a supergene blanket over the top, about 500 metres long. It's really interesting. We've been talking about the copper mineralisation from quite early on during our exploration at Sidewell, but this is the first time we've been able to actually quantify, what we think it looks like and how much there might be.
And you've been working on this for several months. Is the data in line with the company's expectations?
Yeah, pretty much. So as you can see from the announcement, there's quite a range of grades there, copper grades in particular, from about 0.2% up to a bit over 1%, and intersection thicknesses down hole, so not true width, but up to about 55 metres. So some of these zones are really quite substantial.
So while exciting, are there any implications to having copper while recovering gold?
Yeah, there are. So if you're, for example, recovering gold using cyanide leach, there are certain species of copper minerals that are cyanide soluble, and they increase your recovery costs and sometimes decrease your gold recovery. So for a gold only process, that can be a negative. But beyond that, the opportunity is also there to recover the copper as a byproduct credit in a concentrate form. So that would be a completely different, a related but different style of processing plant. But we would then build a concentrator and have a gold circuit on the back. So potentially, it could be a really valuable credit.
Andrew, you touched on this earlier. What would having the copper and silver mineralisation in conjunction with gold mean for the company long term?
We're a little way from doing any sort of economic studies. We need to increase our gold resource confidence from inferred to indicated, and we need to add the copper and silver into the next generation of the gold resource. So yeah, one of the implications that we'll be looking at is, can we recover particularly the copper and produce a high value concentrate and perhaps have bullion on the back end from gravity gold recovery. So kind of a two-stream processing plant would be very interesting as a long-term concept.
Do the latest drilling results reported on May 22 change your view of the target potential?
Yes and no. So they're kind of in line with what we were thinking. And the interesting thing is in those results is this new zone that we've hypothesised was there for a long time, but it's confirmed a zone of about 700 metres of strike at Mulga North. So what we're seeing at Mulga North is basically looking like the exact same chemical signature as Mulga itself. So from the exploration target perspective, that means that there's quite a bit of scope to extend this a fair way to the north. And in fact, we're still assaying some of the previous holes at the north end of the gold resource itself. So there's an area there where we think the exploration target is going to grow in the short term, and then continue to head north into Mulga North in the medium to long term.
Considering the consistent high grades that you're seeing, what's the likelihood of Sidewell becoming one of the higher grade gold mines around?
Kind of early days, but we have a reasonably high grade resource there at 2.6 grams a tonne. Admittedly, there's a bit of a alluvial cover and there's some strip ratio to get down into these really high grade zones. But once you're in there and mining some of that plus 30 gram per tonne material, there's definitely going to be some extremely high grade zones within it. I can't say at this stage what the overall grade is going to be, but I think it will be pretty robust and pretty attractive from an open pit mining perspective.
Just going back now to bismuth as a pathfinder for gold, is this common in the Murchison region?
We don't think it is common, no. So an example in West Australia with a strong bismuth footprint, for example, is the St Ives group. Mulga is not a St Ives analogy, but there is an analogue, but there are certainly some similarities. We're still working on a specific analogue for Mulga to allow people to draw a comparison of what we think might be there. But what we know is at Mulga Bill, we have this really strong bismuth pathfinder over 6 kilometres. So far, that's been extremely useful for identifying gold. What it really gives us is it kind of lights up in the weathered zone and in the fresh rock as this kind of 6 kilometre runway in the shallow drilling in particular. And we've been using that as our kind of early stage targeting tool, and it's extremely useful. In a typical Archean orogenic gold deposit, for example, like Ironbark, you don't really get a bismuth association there. So you're just looking for gold and perhaps arsenic or silver. But with these big intrusive related gold systems like Mulga Bill, we think bismuth is a really important part of that recipe.
So is the company doing any work to better understand the bismuth anomaly? And if so, what modern mining techniques are you using?
Well, we have Scott Halley beavering away in the background, and he's pretty passionate about this project. He's, I think, Australia's best geochemist and one of the best geochemists in the world, and he's really excited about it. And in fact, he's the one who's also working on finding us a really good analogue that we can explain to shareholders.
And you've also been granted the final tenement that makes up the Wellington project in WA's Irahidi Basin, and now an Aboriginal Heritage Survey is imminent. How long do you expect this work to take?
So the survey kicks off next week on the 29th, and that'll probably take about a week. What we've said to the traditional owners is we want to do soil sampling surveys on a 1 by 1 kilometre grid over the entire project. That's all 5 tenements. So I think it'll be, very busy time for them to cover the whole thing in a week. We'll then sit back and wait for that heritage report to come in, and then we'll start doing the actual soil sampling. Good thing is we've got a really good relationship with that Aboriginal group, and I think it's going to be, pretty good for everybody to get out there and get busy.
Are you aware of any heritage sites in the area?
Not that we know of. There's Lake Carnegie, which is about 25 kilometres to the northeast, is a very, very significant Aboriginal heritage site. So we're cognizant of anything in the context of Lake Carnegie, including major drainages, and we'll just stay away from them. So we don't know a lot about the sensitivity of that area, but we'll know a lot more in a couple of weeks' time.
So Andrew, just to wrap up, in terms of news flow, what can mining.com.au investors look out for over the next 6 months?
So in the short term, we've got those last 6 holes from the Phase 2 RC program. Beyond that, we'll have diamond results, more air core drilling, and we'll start talking more about this copper potential. So it'll be a regular news flow of ongoing campaigns of RC, air core and diamond drilling going forward through the rest of the year. So it's more kind of busy field activity, really.
Well, sounds like a busy time ahead. Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks very much.